Hi again, everybody, and welcome to Thursday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. I'm Paul Dottino. He's Matt Sitek. We're going to be here for the next hour, and boy, are we excited to talk to you. 201-939-4513 is our phone number. You're going to want to dial us up today, folks, because we got some good news. We saw Tyrone Tracy and Malik Neighbors out there at practice running around, no braces on. In fact, Malik Neighbors actually took snaps in 11 on 11. Although it's only scout team, it's a carded practice. He did actually run some routes and touch the ball a couple of times, looking as spry as can be and doing some fancy dances, which I have no idea what they're called. Okay, I'm just not hip to that. But I saw some fancy dances out of Malik Neighbors while he was on the field. And Tyrone Tracy also doing some real nifty running as well. They didn't do any team drills with him, but in individuals he did some catches out of the backfield and certainly did some stuff to the outside where he showed his elusiveness. I can't tell you the sigh of relief that I think is coming from Big Blue Nation to hear that kind of news after we saw what we saw the other day when Tracy went down.
Yeah, well, first with Malik Neighbors, I mean, Coach has said throughout the week that, Malik was going to be okay. He's fine. It wasn't too serious. Well, it's one thing to say it, but to actually see him back out on the practice field participating fully, that is a very good thing to see. I mean, you mentioned the individual drills. I mean, Malik was going up there and making catches with one hand. Like, he looked completely fine.
It's him.
And Coach even said briefly before practice that there's a chance Malik plays Saturday. We'll see if he actually...
What do you think about that? I'm thinking probably not.
I would prefer to probably give him a little rest. Although I would understand if they want to get him some game reps with Daniel Jones. If Daniel ends up starting, I could see them then wanting him to get a little bit of time together, those two. But I would probably play it safe given... he's a couple of days off of an injury. But for Tyrone Tracy, I mean, you mentioned a humongous sigh of relief. I mean, we were out there was it Tuesday?
Yeah.
And
2 days ago.
We saw what happened. I mean, it looked bad. And the reaction from everyone out there, like, everyone just sort of held their breath. And, the cart came out, the air cast put on, like, everyone, myself included, thinking the worst. And then obviously there have been reports, the positive updates since that incident on the field. But the fact that literally 48 hours after that happened, he's back out there running around. It doesn't matter that he didn't participate in team drills. That does not matter.
No, it does not.
He was out there running and doing individual drills 48 hours after everyone thought his rookie season was over.
And by the way, the sideline route, he made the catch and then cut it upfield too. It wasn't like he was just doing straight on stuff.
No, he was cutting. He was cutting, which is just incredible that he was able to do that, again, 48 hours after what we saw happen on the practice field. But that, it doesn't matter if he plays Saturday. I don't think he will, given the injury he just suffered. But you got to think that the fact that he was able to get out there at all today, it gives him a good chance to be ready for the start of the season.
I mean, look, we know they're going to ramp him up, and there'll be a progression with the Jets practice, of course, coming up on Wednesday of next week. Then the Jets game coming up a week from Saturday, and then they've got to make their cuts a couple of days later. But I would think this makes their trepidation a whole lot less in terms of trying to figure out what to do with him, because if he comes out of this thing today and says, I don't feel sore, I feel good, well, then there's no reason not to think he couldn't make the 53 without having to go on some kind of injured list.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's remarkable. But this is a great lesson for you folks who believe in the Twitterverse, all right? I mean, the overreaction the other day, we saw what we saw. And that's true. When you see the cart come out and a guy get carted off with an air cast, you have to be very, very careful and cautious. And you have to say, look, this is what happened. Let's wait for some information. And that's what I did, is I got a bunch of people hit me up. Paul, what's going on with Trey? I said, wait for the doctors. Can the guy at least get to HSS, Hospital for Special Surgery, to get an exam before we start chopping off his legs, for God's sakes? But, we got writers and Twitter people who just can't help themselves. They got to jump in full barrel. He could be out for the season. You just got to wait. What's another couple of hours? Wait.
Well, first of all, that, as an NFL reporter, it's all about beating everyone else.
That's
to the
right.
news.
Doesn't matter if we're right. We got to beat everybody.
The one thing I will say in defense of the beat reporters and everyone that was tweeting that was at practice on
Tuesday, a card came out and an air cast came out.
When you see an air cast being put on a player,
red flag comes out.
Let's say if that happens 50 times, probably 49 of those 50 times, it means that a guy broke something or fractured something. You rarely hear about a player being put in an air cast, being taken straight to the hospital, and then it turning out being that he's, almost basically okay. That does not happen very often. So that is the only thing I will say in defense of the people that were tweeting about the news in the moment. I mean, I know standing there, I didn't tweet anything, but just standing there watching, I was thinking the same thing as everyone else. I mean, again, I can't remember a single time that I've been following the NFL, which has been my entire life, that I've heard of a guy getting an air cast put on the field and then being, basically okay.
You will find out as you do this job a lot longer over the years that there will be more exceptions to the rule than you originally believed.
I hope so. Especially with that sort of thing, I hope that there are definitely more cases.
And he's
like
right.
That.
Predominantly, that's the case. Most often, that is the case. I won't put a number on it, but it's not like 99%. It's not that high. But most of the time, that is correct. What you have is such a precautionary mentality, and justifiably so. Okay? Come on. Injuries in this league are devastating. You've got medical staffs that will, all right, if there's any chance at all that there could be, we're throwing, that's it. We're going to err on the side of caution. We're going to overreact. We're going to do what we got to do, and let's go. Let's get the card out. Let's get the soft cast out. Let's make sure positively until we get them to the hospital. Let's not us jump to any conclusions. So I agree with you. More often than not, certainly a lot more often than not, it does turn out to be really serious. But I've seen too many that don't. That always makes me hit the brakes before I jump to any conclusions.
That's fair. And for the record, you want your medical staff to overreact in a situation like that. Sure you do. Like, I have no problem, obviously, with how the medical staff treated it, because you want them to be overly cautious.
This staff is the best in the business.
Yes, undoubtedly. There's no doubt about it. And, it's not even the cart part, because as we've come to learn over the years, especially as Twitter has really exploded, you hear about guys getting carted off from training camp practice every day. And just because they get carted off doesn't mean that they actually suffered a serious injury. Yeah. It's just, why have a guy walk an extra 30, 40 yards if he's even a little bit banged up? You're obviously just going to put him on the cart and take him in.
Two of the most minor ailments that will get a guy carted off, and you will see the Twitterverse explode because they don't know what's going on, and they see the cart and they freak out. One of them is heat exhaustion.
Yep.
The other one is dehydration. Those are the two that are the most minor of ailments that will force the Twitterverse to freak out and panic because they see the cart. And they seem to forget that there are two very minor instances that are possibilities whenever you see a guy take it off like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway. All right. As a reminder, folks, if you're not listening to us live, you can catch this program on the archive and our entire podcast network on the Giants mobile app, podcast platforms everywhere, and at giants.com/podcasts. Having gotten the news out of the way, I will leave it to Matt to announce the transactions because he had to type them up this morning. Giants did make some moves since the show went off the air yesterday at 2 p.m. in the afternoon.
Yes, there was a flurry of news. Reports started to trickle in last night, and then we found out officially all of the moves. So in total, there were 6 moves made by the Giants. 3 players were added, and 3 players, I guess you can say, were subtracted in a sense.
Removed. How about that?
Yes. Starting with Jordan Phillips, defensive tackle, veteran defensive lineman. He was traded to the Dallas Cowboys. You know, there's been a lot of competition. We've spoken a lot about the competition among the defensive line that, you know, for that spot next to Dexter Lawrence. And quite frankly, a lot of the younger guys were just getting more playing time with the first team defense than Jordan Phillips. You know, we've spoken a lot about Ryder Anderson, Jordan Riley,
Elijah Chapman even.
Elijah Chapman. Those guys were, you know, kind of rotating in and getting a lot of snaps or some snaps with the first team defense. Jordan Phillips really wasn't. You know, he was kind of buried behind those guys. So it didn't, I don't think, surprise too many people that he got traded. You know, maybe a little bit of a surprise that he was traded to a division rival. But, you know, if it's a guy that was looking like he wasn't going to make the 53-man roster anyway, to get any sort of draft pick, you know, any sort of improvement on your draft capital moving forward, I think that's a plus.
Younger, healthier guys, DJ Davidson, even Casey Rogers. All of these guys have been rotating and getting snaps on the back end of the depth chart.
Yeah.
And, you know, if there's one thing that we knew, the coaches had been saying this, they really loved the depth at defensive line.
Yeah.
They knew they had a lot of guys there that they liked. And so the other benefit here is you clear out a little bit of salary cap money because Phillips cost you a little more as a veteran who had been around. And you also now have more reps to give out to the younger guys.
Yeah, and then as you and I have spoken about many times over the last few months, I think a part of this was I think they just trust Andre Patterson to develop these younger guys. I mean, there's no doubt that these younger guys are a little more raw and, you know, coming from, you know, Jordan Phillips has been a veteran that's been around forever. And some of these younger guys were, you know, undrafted free agents, guys that were, you know, had been with the Giants the last couple of years, didn't really play that much. I think they trust Andre Patterson to get the best out of those young guys and help them take a step in which they obviously believe that, you know, they didn't need to keep Jordan Phillips anymore. So, all right, that was the first move. Second move, veteran Jalen Mills was released from the non-football injury list. Mills was put on the non-injury football list the first day of training camp, has not participated in a practice over the first 3 weeks of camp. So who knows what he could have potentially added, but he never took the field. So
the Green Goblin was caught in Spider-Man's web, and he is now gone. I'm just trying to lighten the mood. I'm just trying to lighten the mood a little bit.
That was a good one. That was a good one. And then defensive back Elijah Riley was placed on injured reserve. So those are the three, you know, removals, so to speak.
Okay.
And then the Giants added 3 players, starting with running back Joshua Kelly, who has been with the Chargers the last 4 years. Kind of served as Austin Eckler's backup in Los Angeles. Has a good amount of game experience. He's played in 54 games, 320 rush attempts for about 1,150 yards, 6 touchdowns, and had a pretty successful career at UCLA going back to 2018 and 2019. And then the Giants also added a pair of safeties, Raheem Lane, from also formerly of the Los Angeles Chargers, who also has some special teams experience.
Yep.
He tore his ACL in October and is just coming back from that. And then the other safety is Jonathan Sutherland, who spent some time with the Seahawks this offseason, was released from Seattle, I want to say maybe a week or a couple weeks ago.
Right.
And so Giants added these 2 safeties.
Penn State guy,
yes. So the Giants added these 2 safeties because, quite frankly, they were lacking healthy bodies at the safety position, given some of the injuries that the team has been going through. You know, we had seen in recent practices Jason Pinnock, Dane Belton, guys who, you know, are starters or fighting to be starters, taking snaps with like the second and third team defenses because they just didn't have bodies out there. So these 2 additions will definitely help with that injury situation. And, you know, we have 2 weeks now, a little under 2 weeks till 53-man roster cut down day. We'll see what these guys can do and how much they can show in these next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think the interesting part about the running back coming over from the Chargers, Kelly, you know, they just brought in Lennard the other day.
Yes, Lorenzo Lennard.
And so that's
Lingard.
Lingard. I forgot the G. Well, sometimes, that's silent G for a lot of names. Whatever. Lingard, yes, I don't mean to disrespect him in any way. Sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Lingard. Just to kind of look at that situation, so they bring in 2 running backs. I think their anticipation is that, Tracy won't play this weekend. No matter, right? No matter how good he may be looking today. I think their feeling is no. And even though Singletary, as it's been hinted to us that a lot of the starters will get some time in this game, they're going to look a lot to that step chart. And so that means Gray and Miller. And now these 2 other guys may wind up seeing fourth quarter reps. I mean,
for sure.
So I think that's what this is all about. Whether or not they flash and show something and make their way onto the team, that remains to be seen. But for the time being, I think it gives them some living live reps that they can spread out and use in the second half of this game this week, and quite frankly, next week against the Jets.
For sure. 100%.
You don't want to overuse your starters. Whatever you're going to give them because you want to get them into games, that's fine. But you also don't want to overextend them either.
Yeah, I mean, look, you want, there's a chance we see some or a good amount of the starters playing this weekend. We don't know for sure yet.
Mm-hmm.
But even if they do play, you don't want them, playing all 4 quarters.
Not fresh off the bench, no.
Yeah, definitely not. So at the very least, these guys will provide some depth, and as you said, can just eat up some of those reps, particularly in the second half. So you don't have to use guys like, again, Pinnock and Belton playing against, the other team's backups. Yep. You don't want to risk injury in that sort of sense. So
a couple other quick items. That is, Brian Daboll said Drew Lock would be available as the 3rd quarterback. Doesn't necessarily plan to play him, but said he could put him in a game. He will be dressed and could be used if necessary. So that's good news for Locke, as
for sure.
We have become very optimistic the last couple of days that his hip injury or his side, whatever it was exactly, he's not saying, was not so bad.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the fact that he's going to be able to, potentially, or he will suit up and potentially go in if they need him to, the fact that he is going to be able to do that by this weekend, again, it gives me confidence that by week 1, he should be good to go. I shouldn't say should. Will hopefully be good to go.
Right. And also they're taking it easy right now on John Runyon. Sore shoulder, upper body, and Coach did not sound the way he was saying that they're taking it easy with him. They're kind of pulling back, and they're giving him some limited work. I think you could probably safely say he's not playing against Houston.
Yeah,
I think
probably not.
I mean, I never want to be definitive because that's not my position to be. I don't have a right to be. But I'd say based on what he said and how he said it, not likely.
I'm interested to see if some of the other linemen who have been just coming back from injuries will suit up and play Saturday.
None of the media asked him about JMS.
Which, that is interesting, because that is I would very much
He's an important one.
He's pretty important. And Evan Neal as well. I'd be interested to see if either or both of those guys are going to be able to suit up on Saturday.
This is what you do, folks. You listen to the Giants pregame show on WFAN 101.9 on Saturday starting at 12 o'clock. Schmelk and Casillas will be hosting that before I got the play-by-play with Sean O'Hara. And I promise you, we will get that information to you because we'll have it. And that'll be kind of fun to see exactly who and how much they will play against the Texans. We go to the phone lines at 201-939-4513. Donnie in Queens, you are first up on the program. Hello.
Hey, guys. So, just in regards to Schmitz and Neal, he was asked yesterday, I believe, and he said they were long shots to play.
Well, yeah, but we were hoping to get a little more out of him today. And,
that was
nothing happened today.
2 days ago. So
Hey,
a lot can change in 2 days.
Just remember, Tyrone Tracy didn't look this good even a day ago, and now look at him today.
It was over 2 days ago, yeah.
I mean, really.
Hey, Paul.
Yes.
You said something the other day. I wasn't sure if you were messing with him or not, but with Howard, is the roof actually broken? Is that a real thing?
Oh, yeah. There are some very large. There's one huge hole in the roof and one smaller hole in the roof, and they've been unable to repair it.
And so they can't close it, right?
Well, no. They were able to close it, but there are still holes in the closed roof. So
Gotcha.
the
Okay.
benefit is, right, the benefit is that the sun will not be able to beat down uninhibited on most of the field. It will only be clear and direct through the holes that are in the roof.
Gotcha. Because that was my concern, honestly, was that, 1 o'clock Saturday afternoon.
Oh,
in
it's going to be
Houston,
hot.
Texas,
97
I was
degrees.
worried about
Yeah.
cramping and injuries.
Oh,
and things like that.
absolutely. Yeah, the trainers
that
are going to
was
have the
concerned.
hardest job on Saturday. There's no doubt about that. Humidity's
so that
supposed to be over
definitely makes me feel
90%. Real feel on the field is going to be over 100.
Yeah. Hey, one guy I haven't heard a lot about this year in camp, and I think, would you guys agree if there's one unit right now that you have to be the most concerned about in terms of its value to the team and what it could mean for the season going forward would probably be the secondary, particularly the cornerbacks. I haven't heard much about Trey Hawkins this year in camp, which, probably doesn't bode too well for how he's playing. There was a lot of hype out of him last year. So I guess my question is, anything on him? And then looking forward, do you foresee a veteran coming in or a waiver wire pickup? And I'll hang up and listen.
All right, thanks for the call. Tell him what Shane Bowen said today.
I
missed
actually
it.
I was
I'm
had to
sorry.
go upstairs for the roster moves.
Okay, well, hey, but those are important. Shane Bowen praised Trey Hawkins today. Said he's been making some plays, very happy with him. He's involved in the competition. Flott's dinged up with the quad, which means that Nick McLeod has been the next guy up over there. But Hawkins has been playing behind McLeod and also behind Tay Banks. And Shane Bowen, the first-year defensive coordinator, went out of his way today to mention Hawkins. He calls him Hawk. That's his nickname. They call him Hawk. Hawk's been doing a really good job. But they need to see more consistency out of all the young defensive backs who are fighting for position. That's the problem here, folks. It's not that they don't have talent back there. It's just that because of the inexperience, they've got too much inconsistency. I hear all the time the coaches saying to me, so-and-so had a great day yesterday, but then he wasn't as good today. That's the problem. You got to keep the level of play up here. You can't have it going up and down.
Yeah, I mean, that unfortunately is kind of, I don't want to say expected, but it's not as surprising when you have such a young secondary, and especially at the cornerback position. I mean, Deontay Banks is going to be the number one corner. This is his second season. And, some of the other guys that are battling for that second outside corner spot, Cordell Flott, Nick McLeod, those are guys that have only been around the league for a couple of years and haven't had like extensive playing time out there. So there are going to be some growing pains. But I will say about Trey Hawkins, he has mostly, I believe, been lining up with the second team defense, but he's made plays. I mean, he's gotten his hands on the ball a decent amount these last 3 weeks, breaking up passes. He looks comfortable out there. I think going into last year, obviously expectations for him were pretty high going into week one.
Out of necessity.
Out
They
of
didn't have
necessity,
anybody
but
else to play there, and he was having a good summer, so they kind of pushed him up the depth chart.
for sure. But I feel like people sometimes forget that he was a rookie 6th round pick.
Very
that
raw.
was being
Very
asked
raw.
to start week one in the NFL. So I think now there seems to be a little bit less pressure on him, and he seems to be playing, I don't want to say playing better because of it, but he's playing well. So again, these next 2 weeks will be important. I think he will get, my personal opinion, I think he might get a decent to good amount of playing time against the Texans on Saturday. And, if he steps up and has a great game, who knows what could happen.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. I mean, this is a competition. And right now, Flott can't help himself.
Yeah.
He's hurt.
Right now, I feel like Trey Hawkins and like Nick McLeod are probably the two guys that have the biggest opportunity this weekend to
They
really
can help themselves.
give a leg up from the other guys.
We go to line 2, and Maurice in Montclair. You're next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen.
Hi.
Morning.
Hey, so I was sitting in here looking at the NFL. I mean, not the NFL, but the Giants top 100, right? And so before I get to my point, I see Saquon Barkley at number 5. I mean, 95. Sorry about that. And then they have Ahmad Bradshaw at 84. That's not my point. Is how is Bradshaw so ahead of Barkley? And I understand Bradshaw won a championship and was a part of the glory glorious days, but to me, as an individual running back in the Giants' history, he's not as decorated and doesn't have more accomplishments than Saquon. So my question really is, what is this top 100 Giants thing based off of? Because my true point is Plexico Burress sits at 46, while Odell Beckham sits at 37, 9 spots ahead of Plexico. And Plexico, in my opinion, means more in Giants history than Odell. Odell was, all due respect, he was a great player individually and provided a ton of highlights, but didn't do nothing significant for the organization. He doesn't sit, in my opinion, as a hierarchy, in the hierarchies amongst Giants history. Now, like I just mentioned, Ahmad Bradshaw is ahead of Saquon Barkley on this list. For what? It couldn't be his statistical accomplishments. It has to be like what he means to the organization in terms of being a part of some of the championships and things of that nature. I'm really concerned or confused about what this whole top 100 thing is saying to me, because I don't think Odell should be ahead of Plexico on the Giants top 100. So maybe if you guys could kind of help me understand this little list a little bit better. But please tell me why Odell is ahead of Plexico when Odell doesn't mean that much in Giants history.
All right. Well, I think the answer is you'd have to ask each of the voters, and there was a panel that was put together. None of the panelists, okay, Bob Popple was the committee chairperson. He had to tabulate the votes. No one who works for the Giants was allowed to vote. Okay, I've told people this before. I'm part of the Giants broadcast crew, just like Bob. Bob simply tabulated the votes. He didn't vote. I didn't vote. Not allowed to. They wanted a totally independent panel that had no connection or ties to anybody in the building to be able to vote. So they went to longtime writers, guys like Vinny Detrani, Bob Glauber, Peter King,
Paul Schwartz.
Paul Schwartz of the Post. Judy Batista, NFL Media. All very respected people who've been doing this a long time. They also went to Joe Horrigan from the Pro Football Hall of Fame. All right, so they went big picture. Peter King, who covered the Giants for a while with Newsday, but also obviously one of the great NFL scribes of all time. They went to people like Jay Horowitz because they also wanted to represent a fan's perspective. Jay, longtime PR guy from FDU, then the New York Mets, still a historian for the Mets, kind of like I'm a historian here with the Giants. Jay knows about as much about the New York Mets as anybody on the planet. And he also happens to be an absolutely blue-blooded Giants fan. So they wanted to give the fans a vote through Jay Horowitz, you know. And so they had a cross-selection of people. And they said to them, okay, here we go. Let's vote. So we don't have an answer for you as to why somebody landed in a certain spot or why somebody is ahead of somebody else. He did not have a vote. I did not have a vote. So I can't help you there. All I can say is that the panel had an awful lot of eclectic backgrounds to utilize, whether they were NFL or people who were around this team or, in Jay's case, a fan. And they came up with this homogenized list. Bob tabulated the votes, and they came out how they came out. I don't know. Is there anything else to add to that?
I was just going to add another person that was on the panel.
Go ahead.
Ernie Accorsi.
Correct.
Who obviously I guess he does have a connection to the Giants that hasn't worked here.
Not now.
No, he hasn't worked here in almost 2 decades.
And by the way,
but he definitely knows a lot about the Giants.
Long time aficionado between his sports writing and his PR, and then of course with the Colts and with the Browns. I mean, this guy has been involved in sports forever. And if you ever got a chance to sit down and talk to Ernie, you would know, my God, he is a living encyclopedia of not only the NFL, but of Major League Baseball. He knows every detail from like the last 50 years of MLB and of the NFL. So, yes, I'm sorry I left Ernie off the list. I'm glad. Is there anybody else I missed?
I honestly don't remember.
Okay, but
everyone you mentioned.
I'm
but
glad you mentioned Irvin.
He definitely deserved just a little.
God, just a
acknowledgement.
respected sports mind, incredible. So they voted.
Yeah, and I will touch on one thing that Maurice brought up, and he was upset that Ahmad Bradshaw was ahead of Saquon Barkley. And you did mention, Maurice, Ahmad Bradshaw won a Super Bowl. Helped win a Super Bowl here.
Well, he had 2 rings.
But
one
played
was a primary
key,
factor.
Yeah,
the
played
other
a
one
key
less
role.
of a factor.
Played a key role in a Super Bowl win, and was a part of another championship team. Him and Saquon both spent 6 years here. Saquon obviously had the one season where he tore his ACL and missed almost the whole year. But other than that, Saquon got all of the carries in the 5 other seasons. Ahmad Bradshaw, when he was here, was splitting carries with Brandon Jacobs, with Derek Ward. I think I'm missing another running back, but
those were the 2 primaries.
He split carries, and yet he still ranks 7th all time on the Giants rushing list. 1,000 yards less than Saquon, but again, was splitting carries while Saquon was the primary ball carrier pretty much his entire time here. Every time he was on the field, he wasn't splitting carries with anyone. And he also averaged 0.3 yards more per carry than Saquon did here. So you're entitled to your opinion. Everyone is. But I don't think it's crazy at all that Ahmad Bradshaw is ahead of Saquon on this top 100
The shame
list.
of it is both guys played through injuries.
Yeah.
Ahmad Bradshaw had bad ankles. He had foot problems that had plagued him all the way back to his time at Marshall. And there were many weeks where he could not practice, and they would just put him out there for the game. And he had to run plays, run part of the offense without having practiced those plays because they needed to conserve his weary bones for the games. And he was still pretty darn successful.
You could say that.
So, please don't take anything away from Ahmad Bradshaw. Len from Maryland is next up on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hi.
Good. How are you?
Good. I wanted to chat about the top 100 as well, Paul. One of the things I wanted to chat about. I was a little surprised in the latest release that Chris Snee was only at 31. I thought he'd be a little higher. But I must admit, while I think the first 15 to 20 are going to kind of fall into place, and it's going to be easy to see how one is better than the other. 20 to 40 is, I don't know how they sorted out 20 to 40. I mean, you're really talking royalty there, and that's it's pretty difficult. But I wanted to comment. I thought Snee would be just a little higher. I don't know who I dropped down, but I'm just saying I thought Chris would be a little higher.
Len, I'll give you. I'm not going to tell you who, but one of the voters said something to me, and it may be comfort to anybody out there who doesn't particularly care for the rankings. One of the voters said to me, if the guy was a Hall of Famer and he played most of his career with the team, all of those guys immediately go to the top of my list. Now, where you put them in regards to in front of each other is another story, but he pretty much said, look, if the guy was in the Hall of Fame, he can't be under anybody else who didn't make the Hall of Fame. He's got to be up at the top. And that sounded like it had some logic behind it.
Yes.
Now, one caveat on that. We do have some guys who played for us and are in the Hall of Fame, but they only played for us for 1 year, and I'm thinking of Hugh McElhaney, Paul. I don't see him as someone who's probably going to make the list, but I understand what you're saying, and it
again,
indeed,
the point being that they play predominantly with the franchise.
Yeah, absolutely. I get that. Now, the only the only place I'm going to differ, although I don't think in the end that I'm going to have to, I'm going to differ in this discussion, Paul. I've got Eli in the top 10, and he's not yet in the Hall of Fame. Now,
you know he belongs.
We'll see how it plays out.
But I got it. It's okay.
One other guy who was kind of a personal favorite that I was hoping was, in fact, I thought he'd be in the top 25, was Dick Lynch. Geez, terrific defensive back. And I thought, but hey, one thing we know for sure, there's only 25 spots in the top 25.
Wow! Good math there, Len.
And there's probably 35 guys who deserve to be in the top 25.
You know the tough part about Dick Lynch, and I don't know how the panel felt, but because he became such a legendary Giants announcer like Phil Rizzuto did with the Yankees, how does that impact you, even if it's subconscious? Does that impact your vote? Even if you don't mean to, or if maybe that wasn't part of the requirement, did it sneak into your voting process?
Yeah,
I could understand if it did. I wouldn't be upset.
I have to admit, Paul, it did for me.
Yeah.
That snuck in there. But let's not take anything away from Dick Lynch. He was a
no, absolutely not.
In those years, and then Paul, I think in the end, when this is all over, and Matt too. I'm sorry, I keep.
It's okay.
Paul here. We got the number of players between 56 and 63 that are going to be on this list. It's almost going to be like the starting 22 players from that era.
Well, Len, they were going to the championship game practically every season in the era you mentioned.
Those were just terrific players.
I know.
On terrific teams with terrific coaches, both at the assistant coach level and at the head coaching level. I've been meaning to say this since the first 10 came out. I was extremely happy to see my first favorite player. Matt, I'm going back to the early 50s. My first favorite player on the Giants snuck in at 98, Eddie Price, a running back from Tulane. He led the league in rushing one year, a fullback. And as Paul knows, those were the days when the fullbacks were the guys gaining the yardage.
That's right.
It wasn't the running backs; it was the fullbacks.
And game's changed, Len. It's changed an awful lot.
Things have changed. Yeah, things have changed. Hey, have fun on Sunday, by the way, Paul. Announcing that game.
Saturday, Saturday. Game is Saturday.
Saturday.
If it's Sunday, I got a problem.
Yeah, you got a problem. Yeah. All right. One other thing. Defensive line. It looks like 5 guys left for 2 spots. One, that the backup nose tackle, and one other player who can probably play on the outside or maybe come in from nachos if we're playing 2 down linemen. So I see it's probably 2 out of the 5. You would know better than me, but it's to me, well, there's 3 guys there who can play nose tackle behind Dexter, but I think that backup spot is going to go to one of those 3 guys, and then probably Ryder Anderson, is the other guy, although I don't know. But Paul, they're still saying he's 276. Can you play 276? Play at 276 in that kind of defense?
I think his flexibility, Len, is going to help him because he can play outside or inside. He could play the end, technically the end, if you're going to go with a formation utilizing one.
Yeah.
And then he can also play the 3 technique. And quite frankly, he's had a good camp, Matt.
Yes.
I think Ryder Anderson's going to make it. But I've been on him for months. In fact, I was on him last year, so that's not a shock to me.
You've always been a big rider.
Always.
I keep thinking and I know this is not a traditional 3-4 defense, but I keep thinking that the defensive ends in those traditional 3-4 defenses, as I remember them, Paul, they were not Michael Strahan at 275.
No, they were not.
They were, they were guys who weighed 300 pounds. Leonard Marshall. Bigger guys.
Eric Dorsey.
Yeah. Real quick, wide receivers. I think we got 4 guys there. Good news on Neighbors, good news on Tracy, but I think we got 4 guys there. How does it? I mean, what are we looking for in those last 2? For me, ideally, the 5th guy, who is probably going to get a uniform, has to be somebody who plays special teams. And ideally for me, and this is just me talking, guys, I like that sixth guy to be a young guy. He might not dress on Sunday, but, you know, he's a young guy who's got some promise into the future. But you're really counting on the four, the fifth guy to be that special teams help. I mean, those first four guys, they don't play special teams. I mean, you know, you got to hope the fifth guy can play special teams. And for me, again, the sixth guy. How do you break it down, Paul? What do you see happening?
I'm going to let Matt take this because I've been talking about this position for weeks. So, Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, so as we've spoken about, the top four spots seem like they're pretty set between Neighbors, Wandell, Slade, and Hyatt. Beyond that, you know, if you're going to say that there are two additional wide receivers that will make the team or two wide receiver spots, you'd have to think that one of them is going to go to either Isaiah McKenzie or Gunnar Olszewski because they can play, you know, sort of a backup to Wandell in the slot, but they're also going to contribute as in your return game on kickoffs and punt return. And then that last spot, you're right. That last spot, you would think will be able to will contribute on special teams, probably as like a gunner. You know, Bryce Ford Whedon, that's the role we kind of saw him playing in at the start of training camp last year before he suffered his injury. Isaiah Hodgins has been taking snaps as practice reps at the gunner position. Michael Gabriel spoke about it today, said that he has taken snaps on the special teams unit in that gunner position. Not as much as some of those other guys, but he has been starting to get work in there. But yeah, that is a spot where you want the guy to be able to contribute on special. Not want, you pretty much will need that guy to contribute as a gunner.
I mean, you gotta have a wide receiver who plays special teams because I mean the first four guys don't.
Yeah, that's why.
How do we fill out the special teams?
Yeah, that's why. If I had to guess right now, I would think that last spot might come down to a guy like Hodgins or Bryce Ford Whedon because they both have been practicing or getting reps in special teams and have you know at least a little bit of experience at the gunner spot. Right. But who knows? One of these younger guys could also step up in the same role.
Hey, real quick, Matt. I just want you to be ready for this. When we get close to cutdown day, I think Paul knows what my philosophy is. The offensive coach gets 24 players. The defensive coach gets 24 players, and you turn to the special teams guy and you say, "You got 5. Pick them."
Yeah, I mean,
thanks for taking my call. Have fun on Saturday, Paul.
Thanks very much, Len. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Len. But yeah, I mean, you know the three specialists: your kicker, your punter, your long snapper. Those three guys. The Giants. I guess the Giants do have 2 kickers at the moment, but I don't think they're moved. Graham Gano, I think, is a pretty safe making the
you
team.
Think so?
I would think. And then there's only 1 punter and 1 long snapper, and yeah, there are 2 other spots. I mean, obviously, there are a lot of the reserves on offense and defense are going to be big contributors on special teams, as we've seen the last couple of years. I mean, I feel like the 2 biggest special teams contributors the last few years have been Cam Brown and Carter Coughlin, who have also served as backup linebackers. Mm-hmm. And we were just talking about how, you know, that 6th wide receiver spot is going to be someone that's probably going to have to contribute as a gunner on special teams as well. So there is definitely a decent amount of crossover there.
Yeah, the one issue that we still are curious about from the coaches' perspectives, and even Michael Gabriel said they learned a lot from the first week of preseason games, but there's still stuff they're trying to figure out. He was having fun saying, hey, it was great to see how these other coaches are going to coach it up around the league and what they're going to want to do with their schemes. But it's still a work in progress. And that's the thing. Joe Shane told SiriusXM the other day, and I did listen to his interview, and he said something he hadn't talked about with the regular media. He said him and Coach Dable have already gone over their preliminary 53 twice. They've already gone through it twice as they kind of get a feel or somewhat of a handle as to what direction they think they may want to go in. Now, of course, that's never in pen. It's in the lightest pencil that you could possibly imagine. But, you know, they gotta every week, every day even, they've got to refocus and start molding this clay, because before you know it, the cutdown day's here. And how is Michael Gabriel, the special teams coordinator, going to potentially influence? Oh, hey, guys, I need this guy. I want this guy. No, don't take that guy from me. What is his conversation going to be worth when they sit down and hammer this out?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. And frankly, since he's new, we don't really know.
We don't.
So that's something to definitely keep an eye on as we get a little closer to cutdown day, which is less than 2 weeks from now.
Yeah. Maurice, you're next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Maurice, thanks for calling. What do you got for us today?
Hey, so I'm back with a quick one, gentlemen. Thank you for explaining earlier about the writers and how that whole process works. It definitely allowed me to understand what was going on, because I didn't understand why that was the way it was. So what I want to ask you guys is, now, Paul, you're the historian, as you just mentioned. Paul, tell me, what do you think, either personally or what do you think the top 5 Giants on this 100 list might look like? You know what I mean?
I don't think it's appropriate for me to comment on that till after it's over, and I'll tell you why. Because I do work in the building, and even though the votes have already been tabulated, I don't want people to think that in any way, shape, or form, until those names come out in the positions that they were voted in, I don't want anybody to think that there somehow was some kind of influence in anything that I said.
Okay,
and
so
I just want to steer clear of that.
And you don't want to ruin the surprise either.
Well, that too, because quite frankly, I have seen the list. Not that that would impact my voting, because it would not. I will tell you, NFL Films did a special a couple of years ago, a 1-hour special on the Giants' top 10. I was the only person that they asked that was included in all of the video bites for all top 10 of the players who made the list. And they specifically asked me how I would rank them and what my differences were with their rankings. That, I believe, I don't know if NFL Films put that out on DVD or if it's available on the web. Another show, maybe, I'll go over that after the Giants' top 100 is out. I'll be very glad to go over what I voted and how the NFL Films vote came out and my opinion of it, if you'd like to call us back after the top 100 comes out. I just don't think it's appropriate for me to do that today.
All right, that's cool. So you know what? I'll switch gears totally and take this off the air. Besides Super Bowl seasons, Paul, give me your top 5 Giant seasons for any reason you might come up with. But what are your top 5 Giant seasons? I know one of them got to be 89. I'll listen to the rest off the air.
All right, thank you so much for the call. 201-939-4513. Top 5 seasons. Well, that's kind of a loaded question, and I'll tell you why. Because the 2008 season was going to be phenomenal. That team was ticketed to repeat. Everybody knows it. And then Plexico had the issue with the gun. And that totally sabotaged the final result of that year. So now, that was going to be one of the greatest Giants teams of all time, but they couldn't finish the job because of what happened. So how do you calculate? Does that get in the top 5 because of what that team was, but then they didn't finish it because of the accident? So do you not allow me to count that? And to be frank with you, the other part of your question would be, what personally for me? Because I got some personal preferences in why I would vote for a particular season. For example, because I've been following this team ever since I was 5 years old and can even remember plays and games from when I was 5, I would put the 1981 season in there. Now, the 1981 season to most people was not a big deal. They'll look back at it and say, well, all right, so what? They got to the playoffs, they won a wild card game. Yeah, but that ended the darkest period of Giants history. And as a youngster, you know, I was 17 years old. All right? I was born in 1964. So I was 17 in 1981. And when Joe Dinello booted the overtime field goal to beat Dallas in the regular season finale, and then the Giants knew that they would be in if the Jets beat the Packers the following day at Shea Stadium, my goodness, the Giants are going to the playoffs. The Giants made the wild card. There is a postseason in the NFL, and the Giants are in it. Dude, let me tell you something. That is something that I will never forget. And that was almost like winning a Super Bowl until you finally got to win a Super Bowl. That was like as good as it got for anybody who was living during the dry, dark ages and had not experienced what happened in the late 50s or even the early 60s. I mean, when Tittle took them to 3 consecutive NFL championship games in 61, 62, and 63, I mean, that was still a great era, like Len was talking about at Giants football, but your grandfather will tell you, Matt, they lost all 3 in a row. I mean, they were the Bills before the Bills. It's true.
It is true.
I'm not happy about that, but, you know, when my pop talks about Tittle, he talks about him with reverence. He's like, Tittle was the Dan Marino of his day. So, you know, I know that's not the answer to your question, but I think your question is very complicated because it involves a lot of different parts to that meatloaf. Anyway, I don't know. You're younger than me, so you don't have as many to go by. Do you have a top 5?
I don't know if I have about a top 5, and I want to, you know, quickly preview Saturday's game a little bit, but I will give my personal, one of my personal favorite seasons. It was 2005. This was the first year that Eli was a full starter. He was drafted the year before. Kurt Warner started the first 9 games of the 2004 season, though, before Eli took over in the second half. 2005 was the first year Eli started all season. Giants won the division. Went, I believe, 11-5. They won the division. My family, we've spoken about this. My family's had season tickets, you know, my grandpa for 68 years now.
Right.
So I have been going to games my whole life. I will never forget. For the first time in my life, before that Giants-Broncos game in late October of 2005, I went down onto the field during pregame warmups, was standing on the sidelines, which, you know, as a 13-year-old, I thought was the coolest experience of my life.
I get it.
And then that game was also my personal favorite Giants game ever, which was Eli Manning's first comeback victory when he threw that game-winning touchdown to Amani Toomer in the final however many seconds.
Inside the back line of the end zone.
Yep. And so, obviously, you know, the Giants ended up losing in the wild card round of the playoffs, which that wasn't great. But just the regular season alone, that had to be one of my personal favorites. And also just a good Giants team. I feel like that was the year. Obviously, they ended up winning the Super Bowl a couple years later. That was the year where you kind of realize, oh, wait, there's some like serious talent on this roster. They are not that far away from being a Super Bowl level team, which we obviously saw 2 years later.
I mean, and that's the thing. There are so many ingredients that goes into this, and some of it's just personal memories that's going to make you value. The 1997 season, Jim Fossil, you know, George Young retires, you know, Giants win the NFC East Championship in 97 with Fossil in his first year after they had a rocky road with Dan Reeves. Reeves got him into the playoffs in 93. Then they don't make it. Reeves is gone. Fossil comes in. They win the division. George Young is on the field in tears knowing that he's retiring as the Giants general manager, and that's the end of the George Young era. And George is crying on the field. He's tearing up because he realizes that he's stepping out and he has restored some of the glory to the franchise after it had just stumbled and stubbed its toe for several years. And he's going out with a team that won the NFC East and is back in the playoffs again. You know what? There was something special about that.
Definitely.
And I get it. To a lot of people, maybe 97 doesn't mean anything. But, you know, if you know some of the inner workings of the deal and you have an appreciation for George Young, it's a special season.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a really hard one for me. That would probably be another 90-minute podcast. And we don't have 90 minutes. We only have about 90 seconds right now. Anyway, appreciate the thought, though. And it's always great to start talking about these things. Hey, you know what? I'm going to be with John at the 100th Celebration Fan Fest before the Vikings game opening day. John and I are going to be over there. We're going to see the fans. We're going to talk to you folks and meet a whole bunch of the old Giants, old timers, and do a bunch of recordings and stuff. If you see me there, maybe we can have a nice long discussion about this then, but not right now. That's for sure. We do have a couple of announcements to remind you about. because the show's about to wrap up. No, we're not going to take any more calls right now. Run or walk with the Giants legends. The Giants Foundation will host a 5K Racing Kids Run presented by Quest on Saturday, September 7th, 9 a.m. at MetLife Stadium. Net proceeds benefit the Giants Foundation. Participants get a commemorative T-shirt. There'll also be Giants legends there and a live DJ. Get a chance to see some of those folks. Register at giants.com/5K. The Fan Fest that we were just talking about, Friday, September 6th, presented by Wendy's. We'll celebrate the 100 seasons of Giants football, get autographs, panel discussions. Giants legends will be there. There'll be displays, photos, Lombardi trophies, a great light and fireworks show. John and I were talking about this. I don't know if they rehearsed that or not, but I haven't seen it. He said he's heard it's spectacular. Have you seen any video of this?
Of
the rehearsal of the light and fireworks and the drone show and everything?
I have not seen the one that will be at FanFest. I've seen examples of the drone show from other events.
They're pretty cool.
Yeah, that will be something to see.
Yeah.
I promise you that.
Yeah, so get your tickets now by visiting giants.com/fanfest. Giants Huddle podcast, all kinds of Giants and NFL dignitaries, long-form interviews there, features, all kinds of great stuff. Go to giants.com/podcasts. Or go to a favorite podcast platform to go get those as well. Season tickets. We have so many things to tell you about on this show. We need another hour. 2024 is about to be here. Season tickets are available for the season. To check out all the exclusive member benefits, visit giants.com/tickets. And then finally, Giants TV is the official social media app. You can get it on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and the Giants mobile app. It is free. It is on demand. It is a good way to pass some of the time until we get to week 1 of the regular season and the Minnesota Vikings. Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, we got a couple minutes left here.
Do we?
2 minutes.
All right. Pearson says we got 2 more minutes. Okay, Pearson.
All right.
Go.
What is the thing you're looking for, most interested to watch in Saturday's game?
I'm hoping that Daniel Jones has some of the timing down with the receivers. It's clear it's gotten better over the course of training camp. He's been much more accurate recently than he was earlier in camp when there were some misfires because the timing wasn't there and he had not run enough of plays with enough of these guys to have that flow and chemistry. I'm hoping that under game conditions that we see the routes run properly and that Jones delivers the ball on time to where it's supposed to be. That, to me, is going to be important because Daniel has not taken live snaps now since he got hurt in Vegas last year.
Yeah, that is one of the things I'm most interested in seeing as well. DJ's first game action. He spoke to the media as we came on air here, and he said he's ready to go, ready to play as much as Coach Dable wants him to play.
Did you doubt he would be ready?
No doubt. He's been ready. He's been ready to go for a while now. And I think he's happy that it's looking like he's finally getting the green light. We don't know for sure, but it's looking, as Coach has said throughout the week, the plan is for him to play. Hopefully that remains the plan and we get to see him out there. Very excited to see him just, move around a real pocket. He's had the Giants have been doing 11-on-11 drills throughout all of training camp to sort of help Daniel Jones get used to playing with an actual pocket with guys pressuring him, running at him, but he hasn't done it in a game yet. So right. I am excited to see him actually do it in a game situation, hopefully against the Texans starting defense. I mean, Will Anderson and they signed Danielle Hunter as well, I believe. Mm-hmm. That is right up there among the best edge rushing duos in the league. So I'll be interested to watch him going up against some real talented pass rushers that are coming to hit him. He hasn't taken a hit in 9 months.
Will Anderson won't be playing.
Oh, really?
So that's one guy he does not have to necessarily worry about.
Okay. Well, I do want to see Daniel Jones get hit. I'm not gonna lie, because that's one of the biggest things when you're coming back from a major injury like this is getting hit. Especially that first time you get hit, you brush it off, get back up, and you're like, okay, that wasn't that bad. I'm good to go.
Well, to your point, they don't hit the quarterbacks in the dual practices. So when he works against the Jets on Wednesday, he's not going to get hit.
Exactly.
And we don't know if he's going to play against the Jets a week from Saturday. So if he doesn't get touched against the Texans, that means he goes into the Vikings game without having been contacted since last November.
Yep.
You don't want that.
No, but I will say, if Daniel Jones does not get touched a single time on Saturday, that is some very good news for the offensive line. And I can't say that I'd be too upset about that.
So it's a win-win.
I think it is a win-win. And then just real quick, in addition to Daniel Jones, on the defensive side of the ball, the thing that I've been waiting for months to see, and hopefully we'll finally get to see it, is the Giants pass rush all on the field together, getting after the quarterback. I mean, we've seen Brian Burns dominate practice pretty much every single day, whether it's, just the Giants out there, the joint practices with the Lions. He's been getting into the backfield on such a consistent basis. Kayvon Thibodeau has had a great training camp. He's gotten into the backfield a lot. Dexter Lawrence, I mean, the 2-time second-team All-Pro, one of the best defensive linemen, if not the best defensive lineman in the entire NFL. I have been waiting since March 15th, when the Giants acquired Brian Burns officially, to see those three guys out there on the field together. We don't know for sure if it's going to happen on Saturday. I certainly hope it does, because I cannot wait to see those three guys start getting after quarterbacks.
Yeah, DeMeco Ryans, the Texans coach, plays things very ultra close to the vest, like a lot of other coaches do. My contact down in Houston told me yesterday he doesn't really think that Tunsil's going to play at left tackle, which is unfortunate, because I would like to see Tunsil play to give the Giants edge rushers, whoever's going to be on that side, and they'll flop them to give them a test. He said it's probably no for Tunsil, but if he does play, he said he might just get a few snaps. That was his best guess, because Ryans, who apparently was going to address the media one more time today, I've been told that he just doesn't really like to say a whole lot.
Well, even if Tunsil's out there for a handful of snaps, I will take that.
Yeah, that'd be good.
That is just about as good of a competition as Brian Burns or Kayvon Thibodeau could have before week one.
No doubt.
So any game reps against him would be
going
very
against
valuable.
Andrew Thomas is pretty stout,
of course.
too.
But I meant actually being able to then proceed to hit the quarterback after getting around the
offensive
lineman.
Finish. Get that sack. Don't get close. Get that sack. All right, folks, that'll do it for today's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live. Now, Pearson, as I understand it, tomorrow, because of travel arrangements with all of our staff, we're not going to have enough to actually produce a program tomorrow.
Yeah, everyone's traveling or busy. We'll continue on Monday.
Okay, so here's the deal. Coming up on Saturday, you can listen to the Giants pregame show, Schmelk and Casillas, starting at 12 o'clock on WFAN-FM. Kickoff is at 1. All right, then I'll have the call with Sean O'Hara. And on television, you can catch it on Fox 5, New York, locally. And you're going to have other areas you're going to tell people about in a second, whether it's the app or whatever else, that they can see it. It'll be, of course, Bob Papa along with Carl Banks and Phil Simms on Fox 5.
Yeah, and then just like last week for the Lions game, the game will be streamed on Giants.com and the Giants mobile app for those that are in market. You can also stream the games in market on NFL Plus if you have NFL Plus.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're listening to the radio show, I certainly hope you tune in to 101.9 FM to hear Paul with Sean O'Hara and Madeline Burke on the sideline. But if you're a Sirius XM radio person, channel 382, you will be able to hear the Giants broadcast on Sirius XM.
Is that ours or the Texans?
382 will be the Giants.
That's the Giants.
The Giants one for this week.
That's the one you want to listen to, folks.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, that'll do it for this edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live. We thank everybody for participating today. And again, we will be back on Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time with another live edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Giants. From Outside Take, I'm Paul Dottino. We'll talk to you again soon.